Hello, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of OutBüro Voices, where we are having interesting and sometimes fun dialogues with LGBTQ entrepreneurs, professionals, and community leaders from around the world. And today, our guest is Victoria Villasenor from the UK. Hello, Victoria. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Dennis. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, absolutely. So what part of the UK are you from? I forget from our first conversation.
We're in England, and we're in Nottingham, so kind of right dead in the middle.
Oh, okay. Well, if I'm not mistaken, that's a very beautiful area. I kind of passed through, unfortunately, very briefly. So if I get back to that area, now I will have someone to at least visit for a cup of tea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can do tea. Absolutely.
Well, Victoria, tell us a little bit about your business.
Okay, so we run Global Wordsmiths, which is a social enterprise and community interest company. And what we do is work with aspiring writers to help them publish their manuscripts, get their stories told. And then we also work with community organizations to help them get their stories told. So people who maybe don't always get a chance to be heard. We go in and talk to them about writing and then publish their stories in anthologies.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like writing, is it like writing workshops, or is it more of a one-on-one, or?
Yeah. It's all of it.
All of it.
Everything to do with words. What we do, because there are two sides to the business, with it being a social enterprise, which means basically when I did my business course to do this, they said you have to be doing well in order to do good. So if you're struggling to pay your bills, you can't go out and do good things. So this way, we have two sides of the business. The one brings in business working with authors who want to write. And that's where we run workshops and we run international writing retreats. We've done them in Spain the last couple of years. This year, we're doing one in Wales and one here in England, since obviously we can't travel. And we do one-on-one guidance and offer publishing help, that kind of thing. And then the social enterprise side, the community interest side, is working with the community groups. So the one that we just did recently with trans youth was lots and lots of fun, getting them to tell their stories. So it's kind of two very distinct sides to the business.
Oh, okay. And all around publishing. Now, is that, what we would call today traditional publishing, the printed word?
No. So what makes us different is that we're not a publishing house. We're a press, and our anthologies come out under our press. But they're not traditional publishing in the sense that we don't do royalties. Ours are the books we publish specifically are for community work. So any money that the books make goes back to the charity we work with. So we don't make any profit from those. So we don't actually publish authors, but we can help them get manuscripts ready. And if they want to self-publish, they can do that. Or if they want to go through the traditional route, we can help them put together their synopsis and their guideline letters and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. I've had a couple of authors, and actually right now editing an author who I believe self-published, not mistaken. I'm still in the editing process on that one. And I don't think we actually talked about the writing process a little bit, about his why. And for that person, COVID was kind of the impetus to finish the book.
Yeah.
And, if you could talk with us, since you do these workshops, writing is a difficult process for most people. My ex of 17 years fancied himself a writer and did finally, after about 10 years, finish his first screenplay. And I don't think I've done anything else since.
Right.
But, what do you share with us, maybe some of the typical struggles, or kind of your typical person who comes to you? What are they looking for help on?
That's a great question. I think it depends on which side of the business. So if we're talking about a standard author who comes in to talk, the first thing that they do is they say, I've finished this manuscript and now I don't know what to do with it. And that's probably the most common thing. I've written this thing, now what? So then we have a look at it and we say, right, so you've got some craft issues, or, we're seeing some problems with your plot. It's up to you what you want to do next. So we can offer development editing, where we give really in-depth content feedback, or we can just proofread and make sure that there's no glaring errors in it. So it really depends on what the author is asking. But as you say, it's a difficult process, and sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. So you really have to have somebody else look at it, and then have a thick skin and be able to to take on board what somebody says. And I think that's really hard. And I'm an author as well. My last book came out in November, and it won an award while I was in Scotland last week, which was really exciting.
Very nice.
I'll show you. That's very exciting.
What is it called again? We'll talk about it in a few.
It's called Changing Course. It's a sci-fi.
Oh.
But I think being an author helps me understand authors that come to us and how hard that is. And, you hand somebody your baby and they go, wow, this is really ugly.
Right.
And nobody wants to be told that they have an ugly baby, right? So, but we do. And that's part of, cleaning up the baby and then handing it back to you so you're proud of it.
Okay. Yeah, so not only is, just the pure writing a difficult process. And so I guess probably a takeaway from what you're saying there is, get involved in writers groups, writers circles as early as possible. I'm also an artist in the sense I'm a painter.
Right.
And I don't personally like to be influenced as much as possible. I don't think I'm influenced by others, but of course you are, just based on osmosis.
Sure.
Right? What you see, what you hear, what you read would also influence writers. And, but, hearing stuff and thinking about it is two different things. I have a saying that I use all the time, and that is, magic and miracles happen when you have faith in yourself and you take action.
Very nice. Very nice.
And I've been saying that for quite some time. And, running a business, starting a business, starting a book, starting a painting, doing almost anything, is you can have the ideas and the dreams. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, ride 20 miles this week on my bike. I'm going to do this. It's so easy to talk about it, right?
Yeah,
and, that old saying that talk is cheap, right? Action is everything.
Absolutely.
And just like in a business, you can talk about it, but unless you start putting it into action and actually doing it, all it is talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the number of people I have who come to me to say, oh, I've got this great idea for a book. And I say, well, write it. Because an idea is just an idea. And you have to finish the book before you come for editing help.
Yes. But where that comes in is one way that you can take action, whether that's to write a book or to do to start a business, is to start surrounding yourself with people who have common goals and whom you can learn from.
Absolutely.
And who you can share the journey with.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the things, and my partner and I talk about this a lot because my wife runs the business with me. And I think people often think, particularly with writing, I can't speak to painting because I don't know, but people often think, I can read, so I can write. And that's like saying I can sit in a chair, so I can build one. It's not the same. You have to work on your craft. You have to learn what works and what doesn't, and why it works for you, and why this might work better than that, and storylines. It's craft. And the better you get at your craft, the better your writing is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a story to tell, so tell it well. And like you say, work with writing groups, work with other writers who can push you and give you ideas on things that are working for them or that don't work. And it'll teach you to grow a thicker skin too.
Oh, absolutely. And, getting that feedback in whatever it is, because I have, kind of with other artists that I know, and, now even a writer have said, you really need to think of yourself like a business. Because,
absolutely.
Even so, let's keep it with what you're doing with writing. That book is a product.
Yeah.
And, sometimes people will create something just for the sake of having it exist in the world.
Yes.
So so in art, it's you do create the original, and then sometimes you have create, limited prints or something.
Right.
But in the book world, having just one copy on the author's shelf
doesn't really do much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You got it out, but it's the whole point is really to so yes, you might want to have written it just for the pure exercise, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Please, folks, don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on you. I'm just saying, wow, what an incredible amount of energy to have it just sit on your shelf.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if that's all you want, okay.
So be it. Sure. And then you probably don't need somebody like me. But the other side of that is that if you want to send it into the world, you want the best thing that you can put out. Because like you say, it's a product.
Absolutely.
And you should know your market. And a lot of writers don't think about their market, and nor should they while they're writing. But once it's ready to go out into the world, you have to consider that.
Oh, wait. Let's back that one up. Okay, because in business, you have to know your target audience, right? I mean, unless you're a generalist, but you still need to know, like even if you are opening a clothing dry cleaner,
right?
To a total commodity, right? They're every few blocks or whatever, depending on where you live. Every 3 miles, or in your neck of the woods, you might just be one in the town.
Yeah.
But I mean, you do have to know your target audience. Who are the people? What's the geographic region? Are you going for the whole town? Are you going for a certain neighborhood to be your clientele? Are you going for the business, the people who work in the area, so it's convenient for them to drop off and pick up before and after work, even though they might live 30 minutes away?
Right.
So you're going to market to those businesses. You're going to market to these high-end neighborhoods who want and desire and can afford to have everything that they have dry cleaned. Okay. So you just kind of one, blew my mind. Two, I want to have that conversation, because writing a book without understanding who your target audience is seems kind of, I guess you got to know it to a certain sense, right? Yeah, maybe not. So that's why I want to unpack that. It's like, if for example, like you mentioned, your sci-fi, if you're going for the sci-fi genre,
right,
and you're going for a teen novel,
right,
and you might need to know that you're writing more for boys or more for girls.
I think, with sci-fi, I think that's one of those that you don't have to worry too much about, because gender and sci-fi and fantasy are very malleable, which is lovely.
Yeah.
But I think, you definitely need to know your genre and make sure that you hit your genre correctly. But beyond that, so what if you're writing literary fiction, right? Because that has no expectations. I think it's very much like you're painting. You have something that you want to express, and therefore you have to express it in the way that it comes out. And then hopefully, if it needs changes for the market, you can make those changes without altering the creativity and the essence of what you've put out. So
Okay.
I think the genre, like for instance, my sci-fi is for the lesbian market. Now, I know from having worked with a queer publishing house in New York for a very long time now, for over a decade now, I know that market. So I know when I'm writing lesbian fiction that there shouldn't be a lot of talk about penises in it. It's not going to go over well. So in that sense, I know my market. But the amount of lesbian books that I get where they've forgotten that part, and I have to come in as the editor and say, your readers are not going to be interested in this very heterosexual little subplot that needs to come out. So I think as an editor, it's my job to know market. But I think as the writer, the first that you should know your genre, and then you should tell the story you want to tell. And then edit it and mess with it later. But first get that creative rush onto the page.
Okay. I can see where you're going with that. I guess for me, I like to narrate, and you know, I'm also coming from a software product manager role, so I would have to create personas,
Right.
and I got very detailed because for me and writing marketing content and so forth, you know, for me, the more clearly you understand your target audience, and I have an article about this, folks, on my website. You know, I'll even put a link to it here, just so that you, because you know, understand, you know, because I think it's wonderful when you're able to take concepts from different fields and apply them. And so whenever I'm developing or helping someone develop their business and think about it or their plots and so forth,
Yeah.
you know, and I think in writing a story in character development, right? You want to develop that character and understand that character as thoroughly as possible so that it seems rich and real and not very superficial. And so whenever I have, so I think of it very, you know, kind of very similarly. So for example, whenever I'm doing my personas, you know, they get first and last names, their sexual orientation, their gender, if they're married or single, on the prowl, a hookup hoe, what occupation they have, what kind of home they live in, right down to the style of a home. A Spanish, you know, I'm a mid-century modernist, but you know, if someone wants to live in an Italian Tuscany style house and furniture, good for them, not my style. Just for future potential hubbies out there, so you know. Then you go down into, I even get into what kind of car, if they have dogs, if they have children. I mean, just every, as much minutia without going crazy, right? You know, not like what kind of, but depending on what kind of business you're in, you may need to go to that route. Let's say you're a beauty blogger, you write about beauty.
Absolutely.
You would need to get down into the types and the brands and the level of money that person is wanting to spend on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so, and I would even think for, you know, maybe it is getting into the genre of, maybe the genre is it, but, you know, knowing that, you know, for example, I've had a couple authors on where, you know, in the same genre, but one person's book, very thorough workbook, a true workbook with it, and a 400-page book. Someone else in the similar genre, kind of, you know, worksheets within the book, and it's a less than a 200-page. You know, so it's like one kind of talked about the similar topic in half the amount of time versus the full. Now, is one better than the other? No.
Sure.
I'm not saying that.
Because they'll appeal to different audiences as well.
Right.
Somebody who feels that 400 might give them more depth, whereas somebody else might think, actually, I only have time for the 200. So. Right.
So, okay, so very interesting. But you just hit on a thing that I was like, you know, I want to kind of, you know, talk about that for a little bit. So, what are some of the kind of maybe steps that you walk a writer through?
Right. So the first thing I want to know is it finished? Am I working on? Right. Yeah. In their eyes, is it done? It won't be in mine, but you know, is it done? Because I don't want to be working on something that you're still messing with. And then what kind of level of intrusiveness are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody to really come to you with plot gaps and character issues and arcs that aren't working and that kind of thing? Or are you just looking for somebody to pat you on the back and say, good job, you missed a comma? You know, I need to know, because I'll give you what you want, but you know, I might also say you should consider something a little deeper. So we go through the process, and with some authors, that's a chapter by chapter. I'm working with a fabulous guy who's traveling the world. He was a London business exec, and you know, his own helicopter, that kind of stuff. And he sold it all, put everything in a backpack, and is touring the world. He has no home. And he won't buy anything he can't carry in his backpack.
Oh wow, very cool.
It's really cool.
And I gotta ask, is he gay and single?
Unfortunately, no. He is single, not gay. But he's fabulous, and we do it chapter by chapter for his, because he travels, and then he sends me a chapter, and then he travels, and I might not get another one for 6 months, and then I go through it, ask lots of questions, make suggestions on word change and things like that, and then we have a Zoom call.
Let's just back up. We froze for a moment.
Okay.
I heard up to basically the 6 months.
Okay. All right. So he travels for 6 months. He might send me another chapter, and then we have a Zoom call, and we go through my comments and catch up. And he tells me about all the amazing things he's doing and who he's staying with in New Zealand or Puerto Rico or the Bahamas, and that's fantastic. But what he wants from me is it clear, and he knows why he's doing it. He's a inspirational coach, and he's also a business consultant. So he told me at the beginning why he was doing this book, as you mentioned earlier, the why. Mm-hmm. And so that's the principle we work on. And I keep coming back to, you've started with this, where is that in this chapter? So it's a continuing rolling thing where I can make sure that whatever threads he wants are there all the way through. Okay. For lesbian queer authors, we say, okay, you know, what do you want? And then we go through it, and we might send it back with loads of comments and questions and kind of things for them to consider. They send it back to us, we go through it again, send it back, it comes back to us again, and until we feel that it's polished. And then we say, right, so now do you want to send it to a traditional publisher, like the one I work for in New York? Or do you want to send it to, you know, an agent and maybe try to go mainstream? Or do you want to self-publish? And then we help them go for whatever route they feel is best for them. And we talk them through the different options that are available with each route.
Okay. And boy, you know, so far, several folks that I've been interviewing are self-published, and of course that is, you really like your own business, right? Because you got to do all the marketing,
everything.
So very, very challenging.
Yes.
So I'm hearing you have a sci-fi novel. You've been working with that. You've been working in that genre and with folks in that industry for a while.
Yeah.
I've heard lesbian authors. I've heard a heterosexual, globe-trotting, inspirational, you know, person.
Yeah.
So, do you have kind of a genres that you tend to be focused on when writers are coming to you? I mean,
no, not really.
So they could come to you for a Western zombie apocalyptic style book, including fantasy, sci-fi, I mean, So
Yeah.
you're really like, so long as it's the written word, I'm cool.
That's it. I mean, we might have to talk about market at that point, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, we did this one called Leo's Ladder, and it's for kids.
Oh.
It's a children's picture book. And we did this one for
That
a
must
primary.
have been grueling in editing.
Oh, it was, yeah. The
like,
4-letter words were tough.
15 minutes, I'm done with
Yeah.
my coffee, done with the book.
And then this one, World at War, we actually work with primary schools too. So
Oh.
we go to primary schools and we work within their curriculum. So they were, for World at War, they were studying World War II. You know, kids it's information, isn't it? It just comes in and goes out. And what we wanted to do was get them involved in the curriculum itself, but really have fun with it and enjoy it. So we got all the kids to tell their own World War II story and creatively, whatever they wanted. I mean, we've got unicorns and somebody's feeding Hitler bacon as they fall out of a plane. It's very strange. But it was so much fun. And this is the thing, is it got the kids engaged, not only in the curriculum, but in writing and in creative writing and seeing how much fun it can be instead of just something that your teacher forces you to do. And we've done, I think, 4 or 5 of those now.
Okay, well, the fact that I have a 10-year-old, I really like that.
Yeah.
He luckily is a storyteller and a future wannabe YouTuber. We'll see. I keep telling him now, it's, you got to work on this and this and this and this. I mean, it's not just turning on YouTube and going da 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 da, and a minute and a half of you playing video games and not focus. You got to focus. So what I like about what you're doing there is just what you said, is you're taking a topic and then having that creative deep immersion experience with it, because now they have to think about what story they want to tell in and around that period or that time in history.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. And what that does is that's going to, because they've had to really think about it in so many different ways and build their story based on a true story.
Yes.
A book by Johnny based on a true story.
Yeah.
So it's so cool. And that has brought the learning and brought that bit of information to life for them. So
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
As a parent, I applaud.
Yeah. And you know what else it does? And it's really fun to watch over, because we give them 6 weeks to do it. And the amazing thing too is even the kids who don't feel like they can write, the kids who don't feel like English is their field, they get really involved in the storytelling part of it. And I mean, human beings are storytellers. We've been storytellers since we were scratching things on the rocks to say fire and deer. We are storytellers. And the more that kids have accessibility to that, it's just incredible to watch them free up and think, well, I can tell a story. And then they think about the details of World War II, or Mexico was one of theirs. So lots of pyramids and adventure stories. It's amazing how many are very, very similar, but that's okay. But it's just incredible to watch them kind of flourish under this idea that they too can tell a story.
Wonderful. And yes, that's opening their minds. And so you also hit on something. It's also building their confidence. But I think it's wonderful that you're teaching the children at that age to communicate and to tell a story.
Yeah.
Because that is so lacking today, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And picking up on what you're saying there, we did a project with a group of trans kids, and that was called In Different Shoes. And it was a group that met weekly. And we came in and said, right, we've got this grant money. How can we help you tell your stories? Will you work with us for 6 weeks? And every week we'll come in and we'll talk a little bit about writing and how it works. And you tell us your story. what does it mean to you to be trans? And we're talking kids from, I think, 13 to 17, I think. So kids were really struggling to find themselves. But they go into this group and they just hang out and not really talk to each other. They have their phones and they'd kind of laugh a little bit and chat, but not really, nothing deep. So over the 6 weeks, they start talking because they're sharing their stories. And they're sharing how they feel and experiences and how their parents are dealing with this, and really emotional, heavy stuff. And it brought them together and they started talking, actually talking, and supporting each other and giving each other a hug and saying, you know, if you need me, call me. And it's amazing what sharing your story does. And I think that's a big part of why I started that side of the business, was because I believe that just individual basic human stories are incredibly powerful. We did the same thing with Age UK, which is our, it's a group for older people, and they meet and do various functions and creativity and all that kind of stuff. But it's a social project for old people. And we went in there, and there was a lot of, they didn't know each other. There wasn't a lot of talk. The same thing for a hospice that we worked in recently. They would sit in kind of the open room and not talk to each other. They'd stare out the window or just sit quietly and think. But when we got in and said, tell us your story, write your story, give us a snapshot of your life, the most important moment, or the one that makes you smile or cry. And through sharing, they started talking. And like at the hospice, the guys who were both in the war and had no idea that they'd been in the war right around the same time and same units, they started talking and sharing. Mm. And it brought new life to an older time. Stories are so powerful. I mean, that's why we're a social enterprise and a community interest company. I don't want to just help authors write, which is fabulous, and I love that part of my job. But I also believe that communication and individual stories really bring us together. And it's so important to share them.
They do. I absolutely love what you're doing and the examples that you just shared, and what an inspiration for others out there, because sharing the hospice story, and that just actually started to make me tear up just a little bit, because that's one, it's sweet, but not in a but you know what I mean, in a very nice way, because people do feel so isolated, and for the young people, people feel so isolated, but what you have just proven is it's self-inflicted.
We can overcome it.
Yeah, being that isolated is self-inflicted. It's because it's walking in and thinking that, oh, these people aren't talking, therefore I should not talk.
Right.
Well, who said that? Where's the rule on the wall that says you can't talk? You just assume. And then I think people, I don't know, maybe I need to get some sociological psychologist on the show here to start talking about it. So if you're in the group and you have some insights on this, please direct message me, because I would love to have a deep and meaningful conversation about this topic. But my own general kind of sense is that people are so worried about being judged.
Yeah.
And people are so worried about, what the other person would think, and, whether they're going to be throwing shade at them, or they're going to, get, not be accepted and feel bullied. That's a shame, because it's holding yourself back in fear of connecting, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fear, it's fear of rejection.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And not having your people.
Yeah. But, like you just have, through your work, at least in your world and sphere, has proven that sharing actually breaks down that, and it shows the commonalities between us.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll just also put out there is, you know, look at the racial tensions and so forth that have been going on, and why have they been perpetuated throughout these years and kind of hit this crux is because shared stories have not been shared, and the old ways of thinking in isolation, like the teens in the room standing next to each other, they're looking, they're smiling, they're giggling, but they're not really connecting.
Right. Yeah.
I
Absolutely
think,
true.
wow, we just solved world problems, right?
Absolutely true. I mean, that's how I met my wife. She was working with an LGBTQ kids group at a youth center, and these kids were fabulous. They were a lot of fun, but she wanted to do something really special with them, and she'd seen that I had done a book with older LGBTQ people, so over the age of 50. And she said, I want to do that with my kids. Will you come in? And we've been married now for a while. But it was about bringing her kids together and having them share, because she knew that some of them had come from pretty rough areas and didn't talk much about them. And one of the kids on the second session really opened up about how she felt about being gay and how confused she was, and that she was also dyslexic, and so she felt quite stupid all the time. I mean, she just let it out, and it made all the rest of the kids do the same. So she led the way, and the rest of the kids just absolutely put their words down, and it was so powerful. And one of the guys, he was really lovely, and like you say, off to the side, making jokes, not really fully engaged, but he came to us and he said, I can't write. He said, I'm dumb. I can't write. I don't know how to do this. And we said, do you want to? Do you want to tell your story? And he said, yes. And I said, then we can do it. But I can't change or fix words that you haven't put down. So you have to meet me halfway. And my wife is amazing with kids. They just absolutely love her. And so she really kind of coached them through it and gave them the emotional support they needed. And he had no idea he could do it. And not only did he do it, but he said because he got the confidence from that project, he applied to university and got in.
Oh my gosh.
And he wasn't even going to try.
You guys changed that young man's life.
And all it takes is telling somebody that they matter and that their story matters. That's all it takes. And to develop that empathy and compassion and remind people it's out there so they don't feel so isolated. And like you said, the kids especially are more connected and more disconnected than ever before. Yeah. So getting them in a group and getting them to just let go and share is amazingly powerful. So that's what we do.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool. I absolutely love what you guys do. And I really value and appreciate that you did see and create the two sides of your business. And, you know, and that's a great lesson for people out there and organizations out there to, you know, maybe in order to do your passion, maybe you marry that with a, you know, for-profit side and or for-profit, maybe you create the nonprofit side and, you know, have them work in tandem together. So you get, you know, scholarship, grant money, etc. on the nonprofit side, and you're able to do good and do your really heart things. And then on your business side of things, you're doing the more practical, still something you enjoy, but you're, you know, it's kind of that next level like you guys are doing. So
yeah, absolutely. You have to be doing well in order to do good.
I like that. Really like that for that as well. I do have to ask one question though.
What's that?
How in the world do you live in the UK, and are you American? Because you do not have a British accent at all. I didn't ask that earlier, so I'm saving it for now.
Yes, I am. I'm from LA. I got my degree, my MA in English, which you never ever think you're going to be able to use, do you? Like nobody ever uses a degree in English, but I managed. Um, it's actually in composition theory too, which is why and how people write. So,
Hmm.
you know, yay, yay for me.
Okay.
um, and
Uh,
I moved here back in 2007. So I've been here for quite a while now. And I'm Latina as well. So nobody can ever pronounce my surname. And my hair is always really frizzy because it's always raining here.
oh, okay. So you're Latina from LA, married to a British
Right.
woman,
Yeah.
living in Nottingham. Okay,
Yeah.
well, very neat. An international gal.
Yes. Yes. And I work for Bold Strokes Books, which is based on your side of the world in New York,
Oh,
which is a
wonderful.
LGBTQ publisher.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, make connections for me.
I
They'd
will
like
do.
they'd like to be on the show.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for your time today, Victoria, and learning more about you and what you're doing. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Likewise. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have a wonderful day. Bye bye.